I want to start today with something I hear from women almost every single week. I've been eating so well. I cut the gluten, I added the vegetables, I'm drinking the water, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, and my gut is still a mess. And then she says the part that breaks my heart a little every time. I don't know what's wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with you. Your gut changed, and nobody explained why. That's what this episode is for. Before we get into the science, and we are going to get into it because you deserve the actual explanation, not a softer version of it. I want to spend a minute on the story most women in perimenopause have been carrying. The story goes like this. If your gut is giving you trouble, you're doing something wrong. You're eating the wrong things. You're not disciplined enough. You haven't found the right elimination protocol yet. You need to try harder. This story is not only inaccurate, it is actively in the way of the actual solution. Because when you believe the problem is your choices, you keep adjusting your choices. You cut more things out. You add more supplements. You read more labels. You spend more money. And the gut keeps doing what the gut is doing. Because the gut was never the problem. The gut was the messenger. The message it has been sending for some of you for years is this. Something in my hormonal environment changed, and I don't have the same tools I used to have to do my job. That is biology. And today I'm going to show you exactly what that biology looks like. I'm Miriam, functional nutritionist, gut hormone specialist, and the host of the Perimenopause Reset. I have spent more than 20 years in practice with women, all stages of life. Currently, for the last eight to 10 years, 8 years, somewhere between that range, working with women navigating perimenopause and menopause. And the conversation we are having today is one I wish I could have with every single woman who has blamed herself for what her gut is doing. Here is the central idea of this entire episode, and I want you to hold it for the next 30 minutes or so, maybe less. Your gut did not become more difficult because you became less disciplined. Your gut became more difficult, so to speak, because your hormonal environment changed. And that change has direct, measurable, physiological effects on how your digestive system functions. That distinction matters more than I can fully express in one sentence. So let me say it a different way. Imagine your gut is a kitchen. For most of your 30s, that kitchen had everything it needed: the right equipment, the right temperature, the right staff showing up on time. You cooked a meal, it got processed, life moved on. Now imagine that starting in your early to mid 40s. The equipment started changing without anyone telling you. The oven runs cooler, the refrigeration is less consistent, the staff are working different shifts, and no one left you a note. You're still bringing in good ingredients, but the kitchen cannot process them the way it used to. And instead of someone saying, hey, your equipment changed, here's what's happening, you got told, maybe you're bringing in the wrong ingredients. That is where most women are. And that is what we are correcting today. There are four specific shifts that happen inside the gut during perimenopause and menopause. Four mechanisms, four explanations. And once you understand them, I promise you, the way you've been talking to yourself about your body is going to change. All right. The first shift is one that almost no one talks about in the context of perimenopause. And it explains more gut symptoms than any food sensitivity I have ever seen on a lab panel. I want you to think about the last time you ate a good meal, something nourishing, something you were actually looking forward to, and still felt bloated afterward, or still felt like the food just sat there, like your stomach didn't know what to do with it. That is one of the calling cards of low stomach acid. And low stomach acid, the medical term is hypochlorhydria, is directly connected to your hormonal transition. Here's the mechanism. Estrogen and progesterone both influence the production and regulation of gastric acid. As those hormones begin to fluctuate and decline in perimenopause, stomach acid production becomes less consistent and often less sufficient. Now, stomach acid gets a bad reputation. We spend a lot of cultural airtime trying to neutralize it, reduce it, tame it. But adequate stomach acid is not the enemy, it is essential. It is the first step in a cascade that makes digestion possible. When stomach acid drops, protein doesn't break down properly. The enzymes that are supposed to do the next stage of digestion don't get activated the way they should. Food spends longer in the stomach than it is designed to. And the signal that moves everything forward, the signal that says, okay, we're ready for the next phase, never fully fires. The result? Bloating, heaviness after meals, slow transit, sometimes reflux. Not because you have too much acid, but because what acid you do have is escaping upward due to a weakened lower esophageal sphincter that is also influenced by hormonal changes. And the nutrient losses are significant. Stomach acid is required for the absorption of B12, iron, magnesium, and zinc, four nutrients that are already under pressure in perimenopause. Four nutrients that affect energy, mood, sleep, and hormone production. The downstream effects of low stomach acid in midlife are not minor. Now, this is not a food problem, this is a hormonal transition problem that has food implications. That distinction is the whole thing. The second shift is one that a lot of women feel but can't explain. And it shows up most often as constipation that came out of nowhere, or a digestive pattern that used to be predictable and now is not. Progesterone is a smooth muscle relaxant. That quality is part of what makes it beautifully calming to the nervous system. But the smooth muscle it relaxes isn't just in your mind, it's in the walls of your gastrointestinal tract. Gut motility, the rhythmic muscular contractions that move food through your digestive system, is regulated in part by progesterone. When progesterone levels are stable and sufficient, motility has a consistent rhythm. When progesterone begins to fluctuate and drop, as it does, often before estrogen and the early stages of perimenopause, that rhythm becomes irregular. Slower motility means longer transit time. Food and waste move through more slowly. What used to take 24 hours might now take 48 or 72. And the longer waste sits in the colon, the more water gets reabsorbed from it, which means it becomes harder and more difficult to pass. This is the physiological mechanism behind the constipation that so many women in perimenopause experience. It is not a fiber problem, it is not a hydration problem, though both of those things matter. It is a motility problem driven by a hormonal transition that no one warned you was going to affect your digestion. I want to be very clear about something. The constipation you have been living with is not a failure, it is a message. And the message is my progesterone shifted and my gut is running differently now. The third shift is the one that connects everything. And it is the reason that gut symptoms in perimenopause are not just a digestive issue, they are a nervous system issue that shows up in the gut. Your gut and your brain are in constant two-way communication. The technical term for this is the gut brain axis, a bidirectional signaling network that runs primarily through the vagus nerve and connects your central nervous system to your enteric nervous system, which is the nervous system that lives in your gut wall. This conversation is happening every single moment of every single day. What you think affects your gut. What you think affects your gut. What your gut experiences affects your mood, your cognition, your stress response. They are not separate systems, they are one conversation. And sitting right in the middle of that conversation is cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. When it activates in response to a real threat, a perceived threat, a deadline, an argument, a difficult email, a night of broken sleep, your body redirects resources away from digestion. Digestion is metabolically expensive. Under threat, the body deprioritizes it. Gastric acid production drops further. Motility slows further. Blood flow to the digestive organs decreases. The gut becomes less capable at every stage of the process. Now, here is the part that is specific to perimenopause and that almost never gets discussed. The HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is the system that regulates your cortisol and your stress response, is directly modulated by estrogen. As estrogen declines and fluctuates in perimenopause, the HPA axis becomes less regulated. Cortisol reactivity increases. Recovery from stress events takes longer. The baseline cortisol load trends higher. Put simply, the system that was supposed to keep your stress response in check is running without its main regulator, and your gut is feeling every bit of that. Which means your gut is not just dealing with lower sex hormones, it is dealing with a stress system that is running hotter, more reactively, and with less recovery buffer. Because the hormonal regulator of that stress system is in transition. This is why eating the same clean meal in a stressful week produces a completely different gut response than eating it on a calm morning. The food did not change. The hormonal and nervous system environment around the digestion changed. Now, that is physiology. The fourth shift is the one that most directly bridges gut health and hormone health. And it is the reason I became so focused on this intersection in my work. Inside your gut lives a community of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses that number in the trillions. This community is called the gut microbiome, and it does not just support digestion. It manufactures neurotransmitters, regulates immune function, produces vitamins, and this is the part relevant to today. It metabolizes estrogen. There is a specific subset of gut bacteria called the estrobolome. The estrobolome produces an enzyme called beta glucuronidase, which deconjugates estrogen so that it can be reabsorbed and recirculated through the body. In other words, your gut bacteria and your hormones are in a relationship. The estrobolome is the part of that relationship responsible for making sure your estrogen stays in circulation and gets used. When the balance is off, everything downstream feels it. When the estrobolome is healthy and diverse, estrogen metabolism is efficient. When it is disrupted by chronic stress, by antibiotics, by disrupted sleep, by a diet that has been reactive and depleting rather than nourishing, estrogen metabolism becomes less efficient. Less efficient estrogen metabolism means the hormonal imbalances of perimenopause are amplified. Hot flashes that are more intense, mood disruption that is harder to regulate, sleep that won't consolidate, weight that accumulates around the midsection in ways that feel disconnected from what you're eating. Your gut microbiome is not a passive bystander in your hormonal transition. It is an active participant. And the microbial diversity that supported your hormone health in your 30s has been under pressure from years of stress, sleep disruption, dietary patterns that were driven by survival rather than support, and the hormonal transition itself. This is not irreversible. Microbial communities are responsive. They shift with consistent, targeted nourishment, but they cannot shift if you keep treating the gut as a food processing problem rather than a hormonal and ecological one. For some of you, what you just heard landed as relief. Finally, an explanation that isn't about willpower. Finally, a framework that makes the pattern make sense. And for some of you, it might have landed differently. Because if your gut has been sending these signals for years and the explanation was always available and no one gave it to you, that can bring up something complicated. Grief, maybe, frustration, a kind of retroactive exhaustion from all the effort you put into fixing the wrong thing. That response is valid, and I want to sit in it with you for just a second. The wellness industry has not served women in perimenopause well. It has sold us protocols designed for different bodies at different hormonal life stages with different physiological needs. It has told us that if protocols aren't working, the problem is our compliance, our commitment, our willpower. It has not told us that our stomach acid changed, that our motility changed, that our cortisol regulation changed, that our gut microbiome changed, that the entire digestive ecosystem underwent a reorganization that no amount of elimination dieting was ever going to address. You were not failing the protocol. The protocol was failing to account for your biology. That matters. It matters because the story you've been telling yourself about your body is built on a false premise. And a false premise, no matter how sincerely you believed it, cannot produce a true result. So here is your permission slip for today. You are allowed to put down the self blame, not because your choices don't matter, they do. And we're going to talk about that, but because the choices that matter now are different from the ones you've been adjusting. And you cannot know which choices matter until you understand which shifts happened. Now you understand. So now we can actually move. I'm going to give you one thing to take from this episode, okay? And it's not an overhaul, just one thing. Because sustainable change in perimenopause is built in single steps, not complete renovations. I want you to begin paying attention to the state you are in when you eat. Not what you eat, the state you are in. Now, here's why this matters as a first step. All four of the shifts we discussed today are worsened by eating in a sympathetic state, in fight or flight, in urgency, in stress. Stomach acid production drops further. Motility slows further. The gut-brain axis gets noisier and nutrient absorption decreases. Before your next meal, not a special meal, okay? Not a perfect meal, just your next meal. I want you to sit down, both feet on the floor. Take one deliberate breath in through your nose, slow and full, and release it slowly through your mouth. Place one hand on your belly. Now, you are not trying to meditate, okay? You are not trying to achieve a state. You are sending one signal to your nervous system. We are safe. Digestion is allowed to happen. The vagus nerve, the primary highway of the gut-brain axis, responds to slow exhalation. One breath, one signal. That is the beginning of a different relationship between your nervous system and your gut. It will not fix everything, but it will start to show you the connection. And once you feel the connection, the other pieces land differently. Remember the state before the plate. Before I let you go, I want to say something about what comes next. Everything we talked about today, the four shifts, the mechanisms, the permission slip, is the foundation. But the four shifts do not affect every woman the same way. The pattern that is most dominant in your body right now depends on your specific hormonal picture, your stress history, your gut history, your metabolic patterns. That picture has a name, and knowing what it is changes what you focus on. Now, I created a free quiz, the gut hormone pattern quiz, that identifies your specific metabolic archetype based on your symptom patterns. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. And it will tell you which of the hormonal mechanisms we discussed today is most active in your body right now, and what that means for how you nourish, how you move, and how you support your nervous system. It's the next step after this episode. Now, not because you have to do anything about it today, but because understanding your own patterns is the difference between generic advice and a strategy that was built for your body. Now, the link will be in the show notes. Take it when you're ready. Come back and listen to this episode again if something landed the first time. And if you know a woman who has been blaming herself for what her gut is doing, please share this with her. Listen, you are not bad at eating. Your gut changed. And now you know the difference.